All right, so this is my second YouTube video, and today I'm going to talk about what I've learned and, just share a couple of frameworks around getting sober or getting rid of bad habits, right? So, I really was a person in the past that I said, I'm going to start something and I would just never do it, or I would start it and I would always quit it. So, I'm going to just share a couple of things that helped me stick with being sober. Today, I've been sober for 3 years, going on to 4 in a few months. And for me, the biggest thing was saying no. So if you get nothing from this video and what I'm going to talk about today, um, one thing I would say is that saying no and changing your environment, or the people that you are, or the people that are accepting whatever habit you're trying to get rid of, is saying no to them. It could be friends, it could be family, it could be a long time high school best friend, whatever the case may be. I think for me, when I wanted to change my life, I knew I had to say no to a lot of people, a lot of things. So to start it off, right, I'm gonna share my experience and what I did. What were my biggest hurdles? But number one, the first thing that I want to share is that, like I said, saying no is really the big part of it. But number one would be environment. So your environment has a lot to do with the behaviors or the habits that you have going on today. So for me was saying no to the people in my environment and finding other people that kind of shared similar aspirations or lived the life that I wanted to live. Obviously, the finding other people is really a big part that not many people go out and find other people, but they just kind of stay in the realm of their comfort and they just hang out with who they know, right? So for me, it was saying no. It kind of spending a lot of time by myself, really not engaged in these activities. And I'll tell you why. For example, if you're in an environment where all you talk about is about sports, everything is sports, sports betting, going to watch the game. When you go watch the game, then you go get some beers. When you go watch the game or play video games or whatever the case may be, you indulge in whatever habit you're not trying to, be a part of anymore. So for me, saying no to a lot of the environment was really to say no to the aftermath of what came. If you're trying to get in shape, and every time you go hang out with your friends, it's like, let's go get some fast food, let's go get some food, let's do this. It's not kind of like towards, oh, let's go for a walk, let's go for a hike, let's go work out, whatever the case. It all has to do, I want to say, is environment and saying no, right? Finding people that believe in what you're trying to pursue are always going to be the people you want to have around. You know what I mean? So the people that respect whatever you're trying to get done, whether it's getting sober, I think you want to, take their advice with a grain of salt. But for me, I knew that I had to say no to every time someone asked me like, yo, we're going to go hang out, bring some weed. I said no. But what I was doing, regardless, was still going. Because that was my friend group. I didn't have nobody else to hang out with. And outside of work, it was just work, work, work. And I was just kind of hanging out with friends. So what I told myself was, maybe I'll smoke some weed, but I'm going to quit alcohol. And many people didn't notice, right? A lot of people, at least for my friend group, we didn't drink like every single time we hung out. It was always kind of like just a little bit of weed and whatever, just hang out. But every time we went out, I would say no to alcohol. Damn, I didn't even spell that right. So alcohol, right? So I said no to alcohol, and what I did was, that's what I started off as. Come January, it was New Year's. I was, at a friend's house. We're all there watching the ball drop, and I was drunk and high at the same time. And I just said, like, enough with this. Like, I don't want to live this life for the rest of my life, like feeling this way. And it wasn't really until I was like watching the ball drop on TV. But when you're streaming the New Year's celebration, the time is different than the actual, the streaming is actually different than the actual time. So it hit 12 on my phone, but the ball still had like 2 minutes on the TV or whatever. And I just felt like a I was faced with like reality or like a distortion in reality, so to speak. Like if I was in another universe, but that's besides the point. But I just knew I needed to change my life. So from that day on, I haven't picked up a sip of alcohol and I haven't drank a sip of alcohol. So once I said no to that, I just said, let me go one more day. Went one day. So, I wasn't really an avid drinker, but every other weekend, let's sort of speak, or every big gathering, I just said, no, I'm not drinking. I'll just smoke. No, I'm not drinking. And every like months just kept going by, and then it got really tested during the holidays or somebody's birthday or whatever, and I stopped drinking. Then next thing you know, a year comes around and I stopped drinking. Like I was like, damn, I haven't drank alcohol in more than a year. So that's when I took my leap of faith into saying, okay, I proved that to myself, right? I proved that I can quit something and stay consistent at it. So I had like that confidence. I think confidence comes with stacking proof over and over again that you are who you say you are and you say what you're going to do and you actually do it. I think that's where confidence all stems down to. So the confidence that I had from quitting alcohol, which wasn't such a big thing in my life, I didn't drink a lot, I think helped me quit my biggest, biggest thing to tackle was marijuana. So once I had that confidence, all right, I'm gonna just stop, drinking. I'm gonna stop smoking as well. So that's when I was already over a year saying no to alcohol in my current environment, saying no, right? So it was much more easier to say, all right, now I'm saying no to weed. Once I started saying no a lot of times and just my friends were just like not even hitting me up to hang out, I started to realize, okay, cool. What other thing do I have in common with my current friend group outside of just drinking and smoking weed? Now, this is a time in which I was finding myself in my faith. I was going to church every so often, reading my Bible, reading really more books on just self-help books and kind of learning this world of entrepreneurship. And you kind of start off self-help books and then you get intrigued by the success of other famous people that are kind of regurgitating the same thing. So for me, it was coming down to my environment. Once I changed my environment and started saying no to my current friend group, I started saying no to weed. One thing led after another. That current environment started to change. When that environment changed, I had to replace whatever I was doing every time that I would go and hang out, drink, or smoke. Had to change that environment. So for me, I started just picking up other habits. For me, it was reading. It was kind of a weird thing to, at this stage of alcohol, saying no to alcohol. Is like, bro, what do you do for fun or whatever? Oh, I've been reading this book. Da 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 da. That changed my environment. So I would really just hang out by myself, go out to the movies by myself, go nice places to eat. I would go to the library and I would go visit as many coffee shops and I'll go with my book. So for me, I have an addictive personality. So once I pick something up, I have to like replace it with something if I'm trying to cut it off. So the biggest thing was I started to reward myself with like not smoking weed. I would go and get cigars. But for me, it was more coffee. So coffee, library. And again, this all stems from your environment. So for me, I just had to change my environment, be around kind of people that are more chill, relaxed, not eating the loud music. And in reality, it was a tough time because it kind of like tests you. Every moment you could see them on their stories, posting on Instagram, like they're hanging out, or you want to go be with everybody else, but you're like, nah, I don't do that anymore. And I just want to share a story, right? That for me, I had kind of an epiphany because my mental health was deteriorating every time I would mix these two cocktails up with alcohol and weed. So I realized that my relationships with my family were dwindling. Like my relationship with my brother, which was really important to me, my dad, I wasn't speaking to my dad at the time. It really allowed me to like have more accountability and like look at it from the outside. When I looked at Christian that drank and smoked weed, was at the club, was hanging out late at night, I started to realize, would I be a person that I want to hang out with, or would I be someone that I would want around, and like a baby shower or a birthday dinner or something like that? Because I had a half of a friend group that just drank, and I had another friend groups that just smoked and drank. So it kind of like pushed me away from all of them, and I kind of absorbed and really self-analyzed myself as like, what kind of person do I want to become, right? So doing these things not only made me feel better, but the gym and just overall fitness kind of came into the conversation, because if all those nights that I was hanging out late out night to go smoke, I needed to kind of get tired or like change my routine. So every time I would come home from work, I would go on a run. I started running there. So a big thing was obviously your environment, change your environment, go coffee shops, library, eating by yourself. Adopting healthier relationships really helped me grow. So I was starting to be more curious, reading more books, watching more YouTube videos on successful people. And one big takeaway is that besides rappers and musicians or actors and stuff, you don't really see a lot of people that are highly successful or, have a beautiful family life that are constantly overindulging in alcohol or smoking weed. And that's one big takeaway that I noticed in the business world when you get around successful people, is that they don't come smelling like weed. They don't, your hygiene. I started thinking about my hygiene better. It was part of the reason I kind of shaved my head too. My hair was a little light in the front. So I was like, let me fix my appearance and my self-image. And that didn't come until I read a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell. I forgot his first name, but he talks a lot about your self-image and kind of seeing yourself in this individual that you want to be in the future, and then kind of your reality just becomes that, right? So this was a guy that he was a plastic surgeon, and he really fixed up people's face or whatever thing they had in their, scar or after a terrible accident. But every time they went out into the world after their surgery, they saw themselves with that scar. They kind of felt people looking at like they still had the scar. And he realized that a part of your self-image and changing that of how you see yourself is really important. So, this is like 3-4 years ago now, right? So this is a time that I'm like struggling with like finding a romantic relationship, and kind of being around an environment where people would want to hang out with me, not just romantically, but like my group of friends. So once I started like elevating myself, fitness, running, going to the library, being more interesting, that really elevated my way of thinking, my conversations that I would have, and the people that I would meet. And it just brought me around different circles that I didn't imagine if I was this person always indulging in alcohol and weed. Most of the success, like most people, have a drink and they go to the bar and all that. And I realized that after a few months of like the second phase of like quitting weed, 4 or 5 months later, I would still go out hang out with my friends. So like I still love them. I still, some of them I talk to them today, but not as much. But like I still could be around the environment and just be fine with it. Same thing with like alcohol. Even though alcohol wasn't a big thing for me, I can now be around an environment where people drink, and people like had respect for me because they realized the respect I had for myself when I would be in these environments. Like they knew Christian's sober. Christian don't drink. He's drinking a mocktail at the bar. He's whenever they went somewhere else, whatever. But it really came down to, if I could win at home, I did this while still living in my hometown. I'd said, if I could win at home, I could win anywhere. So when I moved to Virginia, it was kind of like a given. Like, I'm not going to be finding the drug dealer. I'm not going to be hanging out with people that smoke. I'm not going to be doing this activity. So it kind of just made me create an environment that I already identified because of my self-image. because I saw myself as an individual that was disciplined enough to say no, which it all comes down to whatever it is. Whatever it is, it's like, you know, saying no to fast food or saying no to certain activities. Like, I don't do that. You know what I mean? So those are my biggest takeaways. And I say that today as I didn't imagine it for myself as much as when I started. Like, you think okay. So a big thing to accomplishing all these things is you have to see it for yourself, but it's like a very small, like, dang, like, I say that I'm going to quit weed, but I always go back after a month or two. But it's like, you have to make the belief much bigger than whatever obstacle you got in front of you. And that's what it made me realize, that with anything in life, like even when it comes down to relationships, you have to really see yourself in what relationship you want to be, or what job you want to be, and the life you have after that, it will come. But you have to have a bigger belief, but at the time you don't see it for yourself. So you have to just expand on that belief on how you see yourself. And yeah, those are the biggest things that I could share around just getting sober and like quitting any bad habits. I would say you have to replace it with something. So this I learned from Atomic Habits and James Clear. You wanna replace that habit. Reward yourself. My reward also became smoking cigars. Cigars is a really like expensive thing. Like, not everybody just starts to get into cigars. It's more like older folks, or just I feel like in my community, especially in a minority or Latino, Black community, it's not really let's go smoke a cigar. Like, it's more for like older people. But I realized that that's where my environment started to change as well. Coffee shops, and also then cigar lounges. Man, like, after I beat this and I was years in, like I was more than a year off smoking weed, I started to go to cigar lounges, right? And obviously I started to realize that I wasn't really addicted to weed itself. I was more addicted of like the loneliness of being by myself. So I just hung out with the people I knew, and they smoked weed, so I'm gonna go smoke weed. And I thought, I'm a stoner, da, da, da. But really, I don't go to cigar lounges all the time. I don't smoke cigars all the time. I drink a lot of coffee. I like to go to the library and just peace and quiet. I like to go on hikes. So you start just trying different things and being curious of what you want to do. But once I started to get around this environment, I started to have just amazing conversations with people that are more serious, professionals, especially in this area in Virginia, which is like one of the wealthiest counties in all of the United States. I had some in Massachusetts, but not so much. But here it's more like laid back. People may have a drink or so, but it's like smoking a cigar is a very like drinking wine kind of. There's a whole world, you know what I mean? So your environment is very important. Just going back to the first one. So what kind of environment are you going to find at the bar? What kind of women are you going to find at the bar? Usually you don't make the best decisions while you're drunk and high. So, I mean, nicotine, smoking is not the best things, but it kind of promoted me to, not promoted, but like it made me get exposed to a different audience. You know what I mean? So when I started going to cigar lounges, I met wealthy individuals. I met professionals that were very successful in their career. And it just elevated my way of thinking, the way of how they carried themselves. Most of them were married, husbands, and just professionals. And little like surely enough, like today I'm married. I'm building a family, and I really can't express in words how grateful I am by just changing my environment and quitting these things. Because it's not, if you go to a cigar lounge and you're like, oh yeah, I'm about to go smoke some weed, it's like, bro, it's a huge turnoff, especially if it's a low vibration thing. Like, you really are not gonna find a lot of people. Yeah, like they'll probably not talk about it. Maybe a hand. You can't cover the sun with your hand. Like, it's very few people, right? But what I'm trying to say is that when you change your environment, different opportunities come. And obviously for me, I just like the nicotine, the smoke. So every so often I go get a cigar, and I'm in these environments which are a lot different than say the environments of going to a club and being out late at night. So a little bit of my story over these past 3 years of just really saying no, saying no to a lot of bad habits or things that I really didn't believe in would take me to the next level. And obviously today, I'm beyond grateful of where I'm at. I'm a lot healthier. I feel a lot better about myself. My confidence is elevated because I can say that I'm sober. I say no to, just spending the time without having valuable conversations. And when you become more interesting, start reading more books, going to coffee shops, working out, people that are serious about their health, it makes you change your priorities and your habits and the way you see yourself. So I would say, going back to it, it would be self-image, curiosity. Curiosity are really the curiosity of, like, it makes you think, what else can I do than just smoke and drink, and it makes you curious of what kind of, especially as a guy, I got curious of what type of women I would run into that didn't believe in this stuff of drinking and smoking, and that just grew my faith in my and going to church and, like, having the same values of just, you're not gonna grow a healthy family, in my opinion, or create some kind of wealth or impact in the world if you stay if you stay a slave to alcohol and weed. So it's kind of just like eliminating your vices, changing your self-image, and it expands your curiosity of what other things you can do besides just wasting your time doing, maybe I would say, low vibrational activities. So that's pretty much it. This is my second video on YouTube. Trying to stay consistent. Second week in a row, posting a video. And I just want to share that you can do it. The things that you think are kind of impossible. And for me, it's only been 3, going on to 4 years. My life has drastically changed. I've met my amazing, beautiful wife that, to me, the person that was doing all these things. Look, I really spelled alcohol wrong. But the person that was doing these things would have not been her husband material, would have not been her ideal partner. You know what I mean? So you just kind of filter out and becoming this person that in reality will open up more quality in relationships, not just romantically, but professionally. And just overall friendships that you have in your life just because you have these certain disciplines. So checking out Christian Gonzalez. Catch you on the next one.